In our 25th year, we celebrate advocacy and the difference it makes in our communities. Asist provides specialist independent advocacy support in Stoke-on-Trent and Staffordshire. Advocacy works to make sure people can have an equal voice in the choices and decisions that affect their lives.
I've been involved in advocacy, volunteering and then paid for over 10 years. And for me, advocacy is important to empower people, to give people a voice. And probably that's why I came in the first place, to volunteer. I think examples during your life mean at some point you might feel disempowered. And once you learn what advocacy is and how you can provide that service to someone else, it's really important, and everybody's at different stages in their life, and it's quite important if people aren't feeling really strong to enable them to either speak for themselves or maybe speak for them.
So I've been working in advocacy with Asist for nearly 20 years, and in advocacy generally I guess a lot longer than that. Advocacy is speaking up, it's about people's rights. It's a way of life, really. We all need advocacy and we're all advocates.
I think it's its very basic stance, because it's about giving people a voice. It's about helping people who need that assistance to have a voice, or need the assistance to speak up for themselves.
For me, it means empowering and supporting individuals, who are quite vulnerable in society. So that's working with people who are detained under the Mental Health Act in some way, and supporting them with understanding what their rights are, ensuring that they know what's happening about their care and treatments, supporting them to talk to professionals and supporting them in meetings. So when someone's detained, quite often they find that suddenly they've got all these kind of rules that they've never had to deal with before. They're not sure how everything works. We kind of go in there, help them to understand things, help them to understand how they can appeal, help them to understand the different kind of sections that they might be under. We talk to them about medications, things that they've perhaps never ever come across before. We'll support them with speaking to staff, asking about leave. It could be a super scary time in your life, and it's one of the times where probably you need the most support. And I think it's really important at that point that we've got advocacy.
Well, for me, advocacy is about addressing imbalance, really. There's a power imbalance. It's about power, really, and an advocate addresses the balance of power towards somebody that hasn't got power themselves. So that's why it's important to me, because there's so many people in the community out there in the world. We all need advocacy at some point in our lives when we're disempowered, and that's very important while we recruit people. That's one of the questions we always ask about somebody's experience of disempowerment. So
advocacy can make a difference on many different levels, and that can be from right up there on a strategic level, when you can support people to have a voice and get involved in shaping provision of services, but it can also make a difference on a really personal level. And at different times we've all got different needs, and people's needs and wants, they vary greatly, and having someone there who listens to you and listens to what you want can make all the difference for somebody. It can give somebody that confidence to be able them to, speak up about what it is that they need in their lives. And sometimes there's a barrier between people and services or people and professionals, and it can be quite difficult for people to feel that they can speak out, and an advocate just sitting there by the side, even if they're not doing anything, it can make that difference, and that can help to shape the services they get, or it can make a difference in their life, which could lead to lots of different things for them.
And I think the impacts of advocacy are great. I think that there is so much more to it than actually providing somebody with a voice. I feel the passion that the advocates have got about equality and empowerment are fantastic and really need to be recognised. And I suppose when I think about advocacy, obviously your main thing is about supporting somebody to have a voice and to be heard. I think a lot of people we do meet have got a voice and a very clear voice, but sometimes might not have the confidence to use it and the confidence to say what they want to say, especially in some meetings. You know, go to lots of meetings and there'd be 8, 9, 10 professionals around a room. It is quite daunting. So I think that's quite a big part of it. I think my experiences of the people that I've supported is about your ears. It's about listening. So if you're supporting somebody with high anxiety levels, they're perhaps not going to hear what's been said. You know, they're quite confidently expressed what they want to say, but hearing what comes back, or perhaps only hearing one part of it and not the other. So I think being able to spend the time with an individual after that event and go, well, actually, this is what was said, and you know, this is what it means, and that explanation, and really involving somebody in their care and treatment. I don't think you can put a price on that. I wouldn't put a price on that if I was ever in that situation, or my family.
I think when I've been doing BME advocacy for the last 11 years, I've worked with some people in different settings, and I think when we first started the BME project, it was there was only 2% of people from ethnic minorities that accessed advocacy. So when we went out to visit people from ethnic backgrounds, there was an assumption by professionals and some social workers that people in those groups look after their own. And we overcome some barriers when we went out to visit, because there's lots of literature that's available in different languages. However, some communities do not read or write even in their own language. So I remember there was a referral that we went to, and there was a gentleman who had always worked, and he was a young person with 4 young children, and he didn't know of social services or any help or support that was available. So as I was new, I went with a social worker and we asked, what support would you like? And he turned around and he said to us, I don't know what you want me to say because I don't know what's available out there. So I think that's a common assumption that we make, that people know what they want, but people don't know always what's out there. So it's really important as advocates, because we can go out as an impartial person and explain to people what is available and what would they like to do with that information. So it's not only about taking their views into account, it's also signposting, explaining what options are available and supporting people through that process.
I don't work directly with the advocacy partners. However, what I see on a day-to-day basis when I go out to meetings, when I'm working with colleagues, I see the very real difference that having an advocate has for those who feel that they've often been battling for a number of years, not been heard, not understood what they can get. They don't then engage with, for example, a GP practice because they don't know how to get through the system, past the telephone, blockages that are there, things that affect most of us in everyday life, potentially, but actually that much worse for those who then give up at the first hurdle or don't even get to the first hurdle because they've got no help.
I once worked with somebody that was, I'd worked with this guy for some time. He was a mental health patient and he'd been sectioned under the Mental Health Act for a long time, and he was found to have cognitive deficits, which is like he was forgetting things basically, and so he was assessed that he was developing a form of dementia. And so a forward-thinking hospital manager and the mental health coordinator said, advocacy, can't you do something about this? Can't you think about how to support him in the future? Because if he's going to lose part of his thinking and his memories and who he is there something you can do to help him? So yeah, okay, I'll do an advanced statement. So it took a long time to do, and it was a series of meeting every week and going back over things, examining things, but what we came up with was an advanced statement, and it was for things that were important to him. So he's like advocating for the future when he couldn't speak up for himself. So this was really important for me to get as much as I could, and it was down to things like watching what he liked to watch on TV. Might be simple things, what food he eats, who he wants to visit him, what kind of TV programs does he like, all the little things that are really important. So little things make up this person, who he is, and what wishes were. So we spent time, did that, sent the copy of this thing once we'd signed everything off. So I was confident knowing that when I wasn't around and when he'd lacked capacity later on in life, he's got this bit of paper that says, don't do this to me, don't put me in front of these people, I don't like associating with drug takers because I don't want to be a drug taker myself. These were all these little things that were important to him. So I know wherever he goes, wherever care provider, they've got that, and they have to consider his views and wishes for when he was able to express himself.
I think everybody we work with and everybody that we support and empower and make sure that they're involved from the beginning to the end of their care and treatment, that's pretty amazing in itself. I think if I think back to my case studies, there'd be perhaps one gentleman on a mental health unit that, in his own right maybe didn't engage with services, had quite a negative impression of all professionals, and obviously that is quite a big barrier to have when obviously you are involved in services. So I think for me, just trying to sit with him and explore where those barriers came from, and not so much if they were justified because they weren't mine, they belonged to him, but trying to sort of work with him to form some relationships so he did feel more part of it. And I just remember it was close to his discharge, and I suppose not that he thanked me, because I don't think I come to work for that, but him just saying, if you hadn't have sat with me, I might not be here, I might not be getting ready for discharge because I wouldn't have listened to them. And and I don't think his situation changed. I think he still had his views about people, and that's okay. I don't think we should ever remove them. It's just trying to work around some of the barriers that people have and where they come from, and support them to support them to move forward. I've been able to use the tools of advocacy to empower somebody and using the law by stating what can happen if this person is given a choice and they wanted to live in a more independent
place. They were in supported accommodation and everything was done for them. And by expressing those views to an independent living advisor and a social worker, eventually over a 6-month period, this person actually was able to move to independent living, and they now have just support once a day, and they access still their work placement and lots of other things. So it really has changed their lives. And they've now offered deprivation of liberty safeguarding as well. So yeah, it's really successful.
So this is the National Advocacy Award that was won last year in 2018 by Asist, and it was down to the work of Reach Soft Advocates, people with learning disabilities who went into Stoke-on-Trent, spoke to lots of other people with learning disabilities to find out what Stoke is like as a place to live, what was good about it, what got in the way of people getting involved in the community, what needed to happen. It was a great piece of work, and for that work, Asist and Reach won Best Equality and Diversity. I think that's a really good example of how advocacy can make a difference in people's lives. So for the researchers, the self-advocates, it made a huge difference to them. They took part in a piece of research with a local university, something that had a real impact in the city. I think for the other people who were all involved in that project, it gave them a chance to speak up about their lives, not just about having a disability, but because of who they are, where they live, as citizens in the community. It helped to raise awareness, it helped people to feel more connected, and most of all, people are really, really proud of the work they did. And that's all advocacy